Hey Trump, this is important. This is something I want to talk about with you. Basic common sense, and it deals with Jesus, and it deals with the economy and politics, and the whole life and spirit, and it's pretty important to me. Um, the tiers for stimulus checks or tariff rebate or Doge dividend checks, which I hope we get all three of those, because why shouldn't we? You know, exactly. Um, there's Democrats that aren't the worst Democrats that think that this isn't ever going to happen and nothing's going to change. I know that you're an instrument of God. Um, I'm trying to still reach out to you personally and get this point across because I'm tired of there's like this gap where people are just so oppressive and doesn't make sense. Like, okay, like they're like the cost of living is they put out these numbers over the years, and it's like that's not the cost of living in this county. Like I live in a tent still, and I work, but these people try to reduce my hours, then reduce my shift itself. 2.5 hours. So the days I do get, they shorten it down, and they're trying to squeeze you for more work for a less amount of money and hours, which is pretty oppressive. I'm not a lazy person, I'm a fairly strong person. Um, things like that, where like the cost of living is this, so if anybody actually needed welfare supplements, it's like still the numbers never add up. If you're a straight person, I'm a straight person. I don't do crime and terrorism, and I don't double, triple dip or have side hustles going and stuff like that, or scams or anything like that. But, look, yeah, poverty sucks, It'll be better. But, the tiers. So 0 to 70,000, you were saying would get. This was some projection that's floating around on the internet, but 0 to 70,000 would get a full amount of a check, and then if you make 100,000 or less, you get a partial amount of check. I think that the gap from 0 to 70,000 is insane. Last year, the money that I brought in on my W-2s was just a bit over $20,000. I borrowed some money also off of a family member because literally couldn't get through most weeks with that type of living. I always have to borrow $50 off my dad. It depends, but a lot of weeks, yes. Okay. Try to work, try to do the right thing. Part of the reason I didn't get better jobs or like server jobs like I used to do was because over the years I had some issues, and this looks like shit until it's fixed all the way. I know, I look like a boxer. I wonder if that illegal MMA fighting place is still in Trenton, New Jersey. I don't know, that's like some China fucking Thailand shit I heard about. There was a guy that fought there that I talked to once in public. Him and his girlfriend at a bar. A long time ago when I used to drink. Definitely more than 4 or 5 years ago. I heard he died since then. But I had asked him what happens if someone dies, because it's illegal fighting ring in Trenton. And I'm not sure if it's still going on. I don't know where it is, but I think they just disappeared the people or something. It's pretty screwed up. This is when you know shit's hit like third world country shit, It's like Ong Bak fucking Thai warrior shit going on, okay? This is like China bullshit. North Korea, China mixed with something else, Anyway, people like me aren't even close to making $70,000. I never make anything close to $70,000 yet. I'm not against it. And hopefully in the future that all changes. But I've never hit that amount of money, and I've always been under like 50,000 easily, okay? My whole life. So for people that make under like $40,000 or $50,000 a year for the time being, considering the Babylonian overcost and rent fixing that's going on. You know, in my county, you can't get an apartment for like, most people know it's like you can't get one for usually like under like $1,100 or $1,200 pretty much, and that's like even shitty apartments. And then never mind, like usually there's utilities on top of that, like everywhere. The rare fluke that maybe a private person rents an apartment comes up on like Craigslist or on a marketplace, and it's like that's like it's not common. So anyway, you end up living in some lady's yard, barely having enough to give them $30 a week for utilities because you shower here, you know, and this is what goes on. I could really use the money if you could make a third tier. I said Jesus too because I was thinking how he had something I read before. I forget what all the details were of that. It had to do with, I think, tithes in the church. I think it was 3 tiers. But 3 tiers seems to make sense in this situation too because the poorest people really need the money the most. And think about it, not every poor person is a scumbag. God says, when you help the poor, you help me. I know that there's scumbag, derelict, criminal, felon, losers that have done such horrible things that nobody in the community can trust them, and they might end up poor too. Those people probably, this is why people keep going into crime though, is because there's some like them, and then there's like some people in between and shades of gray. Then there's people like me who don't want to get involved in any of that, and I want to hold my ground, and I'll even suffer, and you know, I'll keep my integrity, and I want nothing to do with filthy terrorism, China money, lucre, pizza money, shell companies. Even a lot of these corporations, I've had problems, you know, ethically with certain jobs because it's like, I don't know what they're really tied into in the background, what's been going on. There's people with shipping and logistics companies that have been dealing all kinds of stuff right through the regular, you know, grocery stores. I work at a grocery store, okay? I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying, like, look around. I'm in Pennsylvania. You know, Josh Shapiro, P. Diddy, Meek Mills, the heroin ring, all the Mortace gangs that were here. You got the crooked, weird KKK people. You know, there's Scientologists. There's all kinds of whack job stuff in this state. You know, there's some weird Ukrainian stuff that's going on. And there's just there's a lot of dirty players and dirty cults. It's like Nexium type of people, and there's a lot of hookers. There's a lot of people that go to strip clubs, and a lot of swingers, and total like they're like witchy polygamists and fornicators. And then there's just rape mobs. Trenton, Trenton, New Jersey, right across the river, only a few minute drive away. I seen an article on the front page of the paper not too long ago, within the last year or so, maybe 2 years, maybe at the most, but probably less, about this basically it looks like a rape cult's taken over in their prison, and it's not just the people, it was like the guards like have to be, like there's like shit going on with like people just being disgustingly evil. But I try to stay out of as much as I can. You know, I pray, I'm with the Lord Emmanuel. You know, no matter what happens, I think we've gotten through most of the worst of it. 2014 was like pretty strange, crazy wake-up call revelations and stuff like that. But I'm going to get back. I've gone through some crazy stuff. Knowledge from the Lord, spiritual, the cross, and the rebirth, and entering heaven. Therefore, I found out later, I found the scripture. I didn't know that much scripture before, but I believed in the Lord. Apparently, that's all it takes. I didn't know how powerful that was until since 2014, and the Lord taught me a lot and confirmed a lot to me. But I do think there should be another tier for people who make under, like, even if you wanted to cut it lower, it's like if you make less than like $38,000 a year or $34,000 a year, I mean, think how low that is. I made just a little over $20,000 last year. It's not a joke. I don't have multiple bank accounts and aliases. Like I said, I'm not in the CIA. I'm not in the CCP. I'm not working with a bunch of hooly-hoos doing fraud. I don't have a fake disability or a disability or put evil report on myself and da 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 da. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with people running stuff with medical things and all that. We all know that. But you should really also defund the entire UN, the CDC, absolutely, that $10 billion a year in tax appropriations. You know, we're trying to go after people like with like the White Coat Waste Project goes after like the NIH and all these like college labs that they're just like serial torturing animals, like a bunch of serial killers, or like as if it's like Gesalt song bestial snuff porn. Like